Today we're going to cover solving equations part 1 with the variable only on one side of the equation. Before we get into that, let's take a look at like terms. Like terms have both the same letter and the same exponent. So if we're going to simplify this expression, what we want to do first is distribute the 2 through the parentheses. So the 2 multiplies times the 2 comes through and multiplies times the -7. What that's going to give me is 4m minus 14. The plus sign comes straight down, the 5m comes straight down. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. They have to have the same letter and the same exponent. Here I have two m's, and both the m's have an invisible 1 as an exponent, which means they are like terms. 5 plus 4 is 9m, and I'm still left with a -14. The 9 has an m, the 14 doesn't, which means they are not like terms, and that would be my answer for simplifying this expression. The steps for solving equations. After you're finished combining the like terms, you do PEMDAS backwards. You always do the opposite signs, and whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you always do to the other. Our first example, 3x minus 6 equals 18. There are no like terms that I can combine, so now we're going to do PEMDAS backwards. What that means is I'm going to take care of the addition and subtraction first. Now remember, we always do the opposite sign. If I have a -6 here, the opposite of a -6 is adding 6. Whatever I do to one side of the equal sign, I always do to the other side of the equal sign, plus 6. 6 take away 6 cancels out. This is your miniature check. Always make sure that number cancels out. If it doesn't, it means you have the wrong sign or the wrong number. That leaves me with a 3x equals 18 plus 6 is 24. Now I can move on to my multiplication and addition, and I'm going to do the opposite sign. So the opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide by 3. Whatever I do to one side of the equation, I do to the other. 3 divided by 3 cancels out. That's my check. If it doesn't cancel, I did something wrong. X is equal to 24 divided by 3 is 8. Next, fractions. When you have an equation with multiple fractions, multiply everything by the common denominator. Now there's more than one way of doing this. However, the easiest, fastest way is simply get rid of the fractions. I don't like working with fractions, and I don't think you do either, so we want to get rid of the fractions. If I look at my denominators, I have an 8, a 2, and a 4. My common denominator will be 8. What that means is I'm going to multiply everything by my common denominator. 3/4, I'm going to multiply that times 8. 3/8, I'm going to multiply that times 8, and the same thing with the 3/2. Now, going from left to right, remember the 8 is over an invisible 1. Before I multiply, I'm going to cross cancel. What that means is the 4 is going to cancel out and become a 1. 8 is going to cancel out and become a 2. Next, I have 8 again over the invisible 1. Before I multiply, 8 divided by 8 both cancel out. In the end, I have 8 over the 1. Before I multiply 3 times 8, I'm going to cancel the 2 to become a 1, and then 8 divided by 2 is 4. When I'm finished canceling, all of the denominators should have canceled out and become a 1. If they didn't, that means you did not multiply by the correct number. Now, we multiply whatever's left over. 3 times 2 is 6. Bring the equal sign down. 3 times 1 is 3 with the x. 3x. Bring down your subtraction symbol. 3 times 4 is 12. And now we simply do PEMDAS backwards to solve. The opposite of subtracting 12 is to add 12. Whatever I do to one side of the equation, I do to the other. The 6 plus 12 is 18. Bring your equal sign down. Bring the 3x down. Negative 12 and positive 12 cancel each other out. I'm going to rewrite the problem just so that it's not at the bottom of the screen. 18 is equal to 3x. Now, the opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide by 3. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. 3 divided by 3 cancel out. X is equal to 18 divided by 3 is 6. Now, usually we say x equals to, which means I'm going to write this backwards. X is equal to 6. Notice I did not change anything. I just wrote it backwards. Here's another problem with fractions. I don't like fractions, so I'm going to get rid of them. I only have a 3 in the denominator. Remember, the 7 is over an invisible 1. My common denominator is 3. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the common denominator, 3 and 3. Before I multiply, I try to cancel things out. 3 and 3 cancel out, leaving me with 1. Over here, there's nothing to cancel. Now I can multiply straight through. 2x plus 1 times 1 is simply 2x plus 1 is equal to 7 times 3 is 21. Now I do my PEMDAS backwards, starting with adding and subtracting. The opposite of adding 1 is to subtract 1. Whatever I do to one side, we do to the other. Bring the 2x straight down. Check 1 minus 1 cancels out. Bring the equal sign straight down. 21 minus 1 is 20. And rewrite the problem up top so I have room. And 2x is equal to 20. Divide both sides by 2. On the left-hand side, it cancels out. X is equal to 10. Remember the steps from up above. The first thing we're going to do is combine like terms. When I look at this problem, 8x and negative 5x are like terms. The first thing I'm going to do is combine them. 8x take away 5x gives me 3x. Negative 21 did not change. I'm going to bring him straight down, is equal to negative 15. Now I can do PEMDAS backwards. We're starting with addition and subtraction. The opposite of subtracting 21 is to add 21. What I do to one side of the equal sign, I do to the other, plus 21. Negative 21 and positive 21 cancel out. We bring the equal sign straight down. That gives me 3x is equal to 21 take away 15 is 6. The opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide by 3. Whatever I do to one side of the equation, I do to the other. Cancels. X is equal to 2. One thing I want you to notice here, your problems should be in the shape of a triangle. Notice how it got big and then came smaller, smaller. Also, notice how the equal sign is in a straight line all the way down, with the sides becoming smaller on either side. This is how your problem should always look. Equal sign straight down, basically forming a V or a triangle. Again, the first thing we're going to do here is combine like terms. I have a positive 2x and a negative 6x. The 4 is not changing. The equal sign is not changing. 2x take away 6x is negative 4x. The 5 didn't change, so I bring him straight down. Now I do PEMDAS backwards. I have a plus 5. The opposite of adding 5 is to subtract 5. What you do to one side, you do to the other. I check my work. 5 minus 5 cancels out. I bring the equal sign straight down. 4 take away 5 is a 1 with a negative sign in front, is equal to negative 4x. Now notice the negative 4 and the x are multiplying. So the opposite of multiplying by negative 4 is to divide by negative 4. Make sure you are dividing by negative. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Now the importance of dividing by negative is this. We need those negatives to cancel out. If you give me an answer with a negative x, you are wrong. The 4's also cancel out. On the left-hand side, the negatives cancel out also. That leaves me with a fraction, 1/4, is equal to x. And again, that's backwards. We need to write it correctly. So that's going to give me x is equal to 1/4. When they give you fractions, you need to ask yourself, do you want to use the fraction? The most part is, no, I don't want the fractions. So what should you do? You multiply by the common denominator. If I look at my fractions, I have a common denominator of 2 on both fractions. So I'm going to multiply everything by 2. Not just the fractions. We're literally going to multiply everything by 2. This is going to give us slightly bigger numbers, but in the long run, it's going to be easier. Before I multiply, I try to cancel out. 2 divided by 2 cancels out, leaving me with 1s. 18, there's nothing to cancel out. 3x, nothing to cancel out. 11 over 2 is going to cancel with the 2. Now, before I move on, I always check, did my denominators cancel out? The answer is yes. We're good. We move on. Now I have 9x times 1 is 9x, plus 18 times 2, 36, plus 3x times 2, 6x is equal to 11. Now that I've gotten rid of those pesky fractions, I simply combine like terms. I have a 9x and I have a 6x. Those are my like terms. 9 plus 6 is 15x, plus the 36 didn't change, the equal sign didn't change, and neither did the 11. Now I can do my PEMDAS backwards. The opposite of adding 36 is to subtract 36. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. I check, 36, take away 36, cancels out. The 15x comes down, the equal sign comes straight down, and you say 36 take away 11 is 25. Now the bigger number is the 36, so he keeps his sign. That means I'm going to have a negative 25. The opposite of multiplying by 15 is to divide by 15. What I do to one side of the equation, I always do to the other. On the left-hand side, the 15 divided by 15 cancel out, leaving me with x is equal to. Well, 25 over 15 does not divide, but I always look, can I reduce? On top and bottom, I have a 5. Divide by 5, divide by 5. When I reduce that, that's going to give me 25 divided by 5 is 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And don't forget your negative sign. All right, a couple challenging problems here. First, before I can do anything, I have to take care of those parentheses. In this case, they need to be distributed, so that's multiplying. I'm going to distribute the 2 to the 5. I'm going to distribute the 2 to the y. That's going to give me 10 minus 2y. Next, I'm going to distribute the 5, but it's not just a 5. It's a negative 5. Negative 5 times y, negative 5 times the 3. Negative 5 times y is negative 5y. Negative 5 times positive 3, negative 15, equals the negative 26. Now I can combine like terms. On the left-hand side, I have a negative 2y and a negative 5y. I also have a 10 and a negative 15. So we need to combine all of those. I'm going to bring my equal sign straight down. The negative 26 isn't changing. 10 take away 15 is 5. The 15 is bigger, so he keeps the sign, which is negative. Negative 2y and negative 5y, they have the same signs, so I'm going to add them up to a negative 7y. Now that I've combined like terms, I can simply solve. The opposite of subtracting 5 is to add 5. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Negative 5's cancel. 5 take away 26 is a lot easier to say. 26 take away 5 is 21, but the negative is on the 26, so that gives me a negative 21. The 5's canceled, negative 7y comes straight down. The opposite of multiplying by negative 7 is to divide by negative 7. What I do to one side, I always do to the other. We make sure that the negatives cancel out and the 7's cancel out. On the right-hand side, the negatives also canceled out. That leaves me with a y is equal to 21 divided by 7 is 3. Here's our second challenge problem. We need to take care of all the parentheses, any distribution, and combining like terms. First set of parentheses, nothing is happening, so I don't have to do anything. I simply bring the 4x plus 2 down. The second set of parentheses is being multiplied by a negative. Remember, there's an invisible 1 standing there. So I'm going to distribute that negative 1 to the terms inside. Negative 1 times 12 gives me negative 12x. Negative 1 times 8, negative 8. Next, I have positive 2 is going to distribute to the 5x, and the positive 2 is going to distribute to the negative 3. And I multiply across. 2 times 5 is positive 10x. 2 times negative 3, negative 6 is equal to. Now over here, I can go ahead and start combining like terms. The 6 and the 11 are like terms, so I might as well combine them now. 6 plus 11 is 17. On the left-hand side, I'm going to look for like terms also. I have a positive 4x, a negative 12x, and a positive 10x. I also have like terms of a 2, a negative 8, and a negative 6. So we're going to combine those all the way down. First, I'm going to bring my equal sign straight down. The 17 hasn't changed. Now, the numbers. Negative 6 and negative 8 gives me negative 14. Negative 14 and a positive 2 give me negative 12. So I write negative 12. Then I have 4, negative 12. Well, negative 12x plus 4x gives me a negative 8x. Plus the 10x. Plus 10x gives me a 2x, positive. Don't be afraid of doing little side problems to make sure you're doing the problems correctly. The opposite of subtracting 12, add 12. What you do to one side, you always do to the other. We check our work to see if it canceled. Negative 12 and positive 12, yes, they do cancel. So I bring my 2x down, bring my equal sign down. 17 plus 12 is 29. I divide by 2 and divide by 2. That cancels. X is equal to 29 halves.